everyone, and welcome to another episode of QTube. Today, we are joined by burgeoning Canadian talent, Alessia from A is for Arrows. Alessia, welcome to QTube.
Thank you for having me. So nice to see you.
It's so nice to see you. It's interesting because with COVID, and I feel like it's going to be one of those things where we're always saying COVID, we're always referencing it. But because of this, I mean, I've been able to talk to so many different artists, but a lot of the times it's in exchanges, whether it's on DMs and Instagram or email or just kind of in Twitter or something like that. And then it feels like you've talked to them forever. And then you sit down and you're like, this is the first time we're actually speaking to one another.
Oh, it's so true. I think I've had that happen, like this year especially. I mean, at least like a handful of times where I meet that person in person or over FaceTime or Zoom, and I'm just like, is this the first time I'm meeting you face to face? It's just the world we live in. It's crazy.
It's wild. And I mean, and we'll get into this because you are an artist and a recording artist and a releasing artist, which is so good to know that artists are still getting out there and getting a fire in them to release things, because this has been hard on artists. And no matter how much we put up the stats of what artists have lost and what the challenges that artists have faced, a lot of people don't really still understand it. They think that there's a magic, I don't know if they think there's a magic stage somewhere or they think there's a magic machine somewhere that artists are still kind of flourishing, but artists have been challenged through this time.
Very challenged. I mean, you have to find more new innovative ways to present yourself now. Like a lot of people are going live, finding ways to present their live show. And it's a challenge to do all of that to begin with, and then add this new pandemic on top of it. It's just, I'm still figuring it out. I don't think I figured it out yet, which is like, I'm still working at it.
I think it's a work in progress. And I think that the longer it takes and the longer it's going on, there's some positives that could happen that come out of it that change things in the industry. And there's also some negatives that we're definitely feeling. Right. But for you, you have a song out. It's been out for a little bit. Can't Stop is the new A is for Arrows. Yeah. And I love the lyric video that goes along with it, because it just looks like you're having so much fun. And I was just like, I wish we weren't in a pandemic so that we could be physically somewhere and I would just want to be surrounded by candy and cake and we just sit down and we just do this.
That's basically what we wanted to do. We just wanted to have fun because there's so much anxiety surrounding the whole pandemic and the way we're living now. I kind of just wanted to escape and just have just be surrounded by things that make me laugh right now. And that's why we did it that way.
I think you need it. I think that, and I think people are really understanding it more. With this song, so I'm trying to count, remember, because Roses was out and you've had 3 singles this year, but the 4th was in December of 2019, but in 2020, you've had the 3.
We've had 3, yeah.
What I would say is there's been a real arc to you as an artist and to A is for Arrows as a sound. And it's kind of come along. There was a little bit of a maybe more of a dark pop kind of feeling at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where you've landed, and I mentioned this to you already, but vocally, you are the confidence that's come through. Not that it didn't sound like you were confident before. It's just that there's a lightness, a light that's kind of coming through, and it sounds like you're just heading towards someplace that's so fun and so full of life. It Can't Stop to me sounds like a cross between if you took, Cave Boy and like a Tegan and Sarah and Dragonette and you threw them into a bag and you shook them up, and this song kind of just strolled right out, and it's up in the stratosphere for me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's like, it's awesome to hear someone else's perspective, because me as an artist, you live with the song for, sometimes years before it gets released. And like, for instance, Without You was released December 2019, but we had written that 4 or 5 years ago. So I think it's cool that you've heard an evolution. I've felt it. I felt it in after Talking to My Sleep, I felt it after that. And then Can't Stop was, I don't think we had written a song that was so kind of up tempo and upbeat and like happy and carefree feeling. So that was fun to explore that. Yeah, I mean, it was a really cool process.
And I would agree with you with Talking in My Sleep is where I heard kind of that switch, that change. Where Roses and Without You were a little bit more, I don't want to say moody, but they had a little bit more of a heaviness to them in terms of the content. Talking in My Sleep was, and I mean, just like the lyrics say, it was a huge shift in that whole kind of fuck it. We're moving on, we're making some changes, and you could hear it in the music, you could hear it, I mean, obviously in the lyrics, but and what's interesting, and I always say this, and I always use the word interesting, apparently I'm stuck on this word, but in a song like that, a lot of the times, if you're going to use like a curse word or, you know, an expletive, as people would say, sometimes it can sound really forced. And then sometimes, you know, it's exactly what's needed in the song, and that's what you hear in it. It doesn't sound out of place at all. It sounds like, yeah, this is an emotional journey. We're going somewhere, and this is exactly what is needed right now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I get in a lot of trouble for cursing in my songs, but I just think that, like, for me, a good song is when it's believable. I think that I don't care if you're like technically like amazing at singing or technically amazing at any instrument you're playing. I think good music is believable, and I curse a lot in real life. So it felt right. And so we did it. I mean, at the beginning, actually, like before it was released, there was a lot more cursing, and we decided like maybe we got to balance it out a little bit. So I do, I think it was very me.
Now I'm questioning my sanity, and I worry without you who I might be. I wanna give you more than anxiety, but I'm afraid of talking to you when I sleep.
I think that that's important. I think that, you know, sometimes there's regardless of whoever it is, if it's radio that needs a clean version, if it's society saying that things are getting out of hand or whatnot, I think that there's an obvious and a real intrinsic need for artists to be able to be real, and to, you know, be able to take the brakes off sometimes and let go and get off the leash a little bit, if you will, because they experience things that a lot of the times we don't. Artists, you know, part of your whole journey, your whole life is to dive and continuously dive into experience and emotion. And then you put it down in song, which you have to relive all over again. And then you release it to the world, and then you have to hear it out there and you're reliving it again. And then you have to deal with any kind of criticism or judgment or, you know, and both sides, pros and cons, you know, but it's a bombardment. One song can really, you know, be an emotional upheaval for you. And I don't think sometimes people really take into consideration what that means. Like, it's almost kind of like public therapy in a way.
100%. I mean, for me, at least, music is therapeutic, and that's why I do it. Like at the core, that's why I do it. And it's funny because we have all these feelings and all these experiences, and we put it in a song that's like 3 to 4 minutes, or now it's getting shorter, 2.5 minutes to 3.5 minutes. And then it's so easy for people to just listen to 5 seconds of it and just be like, okay, like that's it. Like I'm done with it. When the fact is that I literally put my heart and soul into each thing, you know, and it's personal.
It's a real, I mean, somebody said to me the other day that it's like, oh, that song, it's really good, but the lead in is like 20 seconds long, and it's just so long. And I'm kind of like, are you kidding me? I'm like, you're going to talk to me about a lead in of the music being 20 seconds, and it's incredible music. I'm like, what has happened to you with your attention span?
I think it's all of us as a whole, the internet, the social media, our attention, TikTok. if you're not in 5 seconds, you're just like, next video.
It's bizarre. And yeah, with those challenges, it's nice to see, and you know, again, with Can't Stop, because it is, to me, it's refreshing. It's got so much life to it. It's a real street song to me, and there's certain songs that jump into my head and I can hear myself like, this is what's going to be playing in my head if I'm walking down the street, and it's a street song to me. And I would
say, what's a street song? That's so cool.
It's got the bounce, right? It's got the street song kind of bounce to it.
That makes me happy.
With releasing that, and like I said, it's been out now, and probably long enough to kind of give you a sense of how things are changing in terms of how things are received, and putting it up against, and not necessarily against, but in comparison to talking in my sleep, talking in your sleep. Are you noticing, are there challenges that you've come across that, you know, it's like, okay, this is different now because of how people are online, and we have to switch some gears? And on the same side, has there been things where it's kind of like, oh, this is much better now because of it?
Yeah, I think, at least for me, I think there's a silver lining in all this. For me, I've been able to, more than ever, kind of sit with my thoughts, like my immediate thoughts and my immediate feelings, and write more than ever. And it's less retrospective writing, and it's more immediate. That's a big plus for me right now, because right now I have nothing but time to do that. On the social media aspect of it, technology, I think, like I said about TikTok, I think that's an asset. I'll admit, I haven't really dove into it as much as I should. I'm getting there. I'm trying to figure out how I can present myself where it's like comfortable for me, and like it's true to who I am. But I think there's a lot of pluses on it, because technology is going even further than it has been. And I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, to be honest. But I think writing, for me, that's been the biggest plus.
Have you found some, and I ask this to artists quite a bit, have you found some, I guess, grounding and a balance to be able to manage expectation of streams upon release? Do you look at like the initial launch, or do you look at more like the longevity of it? Because I know that some artists are like, there's so much that happens all at once and everything kind of comes out, and you're fighting against everything.
Yeah.
But then it takes off, and like 3 weeks later is when I'm hitting my stride with streams. Do you balance that well, or is there anxiety in there with it?
It's funny, because I have anxiety with everything, and then when it comes to releasing, it's actually a relief. And I release things, I'm like, it's just gonna do what it's gonna do. That I've done all of the work that's caused me anxiety. So now that it's released, it's actually it's a stress reliever. And I don't really look at the streams. I know I probably should, but I don't need to put that on my chest on top of everything else. I think I just want to let it be and just let the music speak for itself. And if it doesn't do as many streams as I thought it would have, that's okay, because I'm still making music and it's still important and I still have validation. Yeah.
And I mean, being in Canada and being a Canadian artist, the Juno nominations will be coming out, and the submissions have opened for artists to submit themselves for consideration for Junos and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, you've had a number of songs out, and I know that I believe you're working towards an EP still, but is that something, and I kind of, it's curious from a Canadian standpoint, is that something that you kind of go, those submissions are open, do I take a shot at, do I, you know, is there confidence there to kind of put yourself in there, or is it one of those things where it's kind of like, I need to wait till I feel that this is going to be something worth going in, or do you even think about it?
It's a little bit, it's a mix of both. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, like just let's do it all. Let's submit and and like throw caution to the wind, see what happens. And then there's part of me that's like, well, why don't we wait until we're 100% sure? So, and then, yeah, I'd say there's a mix. I think that's a simple answer.
Oh, I think, yeah, I mean, everybody wants, it's funny because, I mean, I think once upon a time before, with what's happening with the internet and technology and that now, it was one of the few places for like really strong recognition was in award shows. And
Yeah.
It would be interesting to know from their aspect, and maybe I can get somebody on the horn someday and talk to them about it, about how they're changing things, because has there been a worry about whether or not artists actually value it the same way? I mean, obviously there's value, but then you look at, you know, recognition across different platforms online and what's happening for artists. And sometimes recognition through other platforms now advances you even more.
Yeah.
Making me anxious. I wanna calm down when I need a shoulder. You're never around. You take what you want, and I give it to you. You keep coming back, you're tearing my heart in two.
So I'll use the United States as an example.
Okay.
So if you happen to find yourself in Billboard as, you know, you've been announced, it's like, oh, they have a new single and we really want to kind of give presence to it. Suddenly that may take you a lot further than actually being nominated for something, because even though people see the nominations, it's only, I think, a certain part of the population that really steer into awards, where more people kind of look at it. And I think maybe more kind of festivals and whatnot look at the presence in certain publications or from a certain writer or tastemaker, as you would, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's all very hard to judge right now. I think Billboard is still pretty prevalent. I think that's important still. Getting a top 40 song is still important, but I think it's different now. I think now the social media platforms really take the cake. Again, I'm going to bring up TikTok.
Yeah, they do. I mean, there's such a push in those areas. From a radio standpoint, because radio, I mean, it's interesting because in Canada, I do find that, you know, radio for us, it can still be really, really important, where some people have been, you know, talking about the death of radio. I look at it as there's a resurgence happening, because I think that radio has had to get a little bit more inventive. But as an artist who's releasing, are you finding radio a challenge, and are you finding, you know, just being, it's, you know, playlisting, I guess, is now
Playlisting's the new radio, yeah.
Yeah. Are you finding that a challenge, or has it been kind of like, have you had responses, and is it the same kind of thing? You're sending out press releases and you're sending out notices, I'm assuming. Is it done the same way, and are you getting reception in the way that you want to, or are there challenges?
Yeah, I think there's similarities in both. Playlisting is huge. And I mean, if you get a big playlist, that's exposure, right? Which is what the radio was meant for the longest time. And I do still think that there's, I think radio is still important. So Talking in My Sleep did go to Canadian radio. It was actually a top 40 song, which is very exciting for me. Yeah, it did really well, and I think it was important, and it was validating, especially for like my family, to hear something I've put my heart and soul into, to be nationwide. Like, that was really cool to be on that platform. But yeah, I think streaming is becoming the new radio, whereas like that's where people go for their music. That's where they seek it out. That's where they search for it. And if you're not playlisted, it's very hard to get in front of people. That's as simple as it gets. If you're not on a playlist, people won't find you.
I've had conversations, and I've sent emails to Spotify about responsibility with playlisting and making sure that playlists are updated regularly and that they're diversifying their playlists to give artists the most. I mean, who am I? They're they're not really worried about what I'm having to say, but it's very, very true. And I hope that they are listening to their artists who are reaching out to them as well. That same thing can be said about the industry as a whole in terms of music, and not just Canada, but across the world. Different countries have different approaches to how they handle music within their own country and just the industry as it is. But I know that like there are challenges. And as an independent artist yourself, what challenges have you faced, I guess, just in the industry itself?
I think just, well, just being heard. I think just being in front of people, being taken seriously as an artist, because I feel like with streaming, a lot of people, there's a lot more artists, and I think it's even more competitive. And I think you have to have even more of a personality. And my challenge is still that, is still getting out there and placing my personality in front of the music, because I'm like the kind of person that's like, no, the music has to speak for it. And I realize that everybody wants to know me more than the music, that they'll go and seek the music after they've seen me on Instagram, see me talk about something. So I think that's the biggest challenge I'm still having, because I'm just like, it's all about the music, you know?
Which, I mean, ultimately you want it to be.
But it is, yeah.
But you are correct. You're 100% right when you say that, you know, we are a society that's kind of like, oh, that person seems really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, they also make music. It's like,
yeah, exactly. And it's like secondary sometimes. And I'm like trying to figure it out, still figuring it out.
oh my God, if I think that you could have a completely different career if you find the answer for that. We'd have lineups, because I think so many artists are feeling it.
Yeah, I'm honestly like, I wish I could sit here and be so self-assured and be like, I have everything together and I know all the answers, but I don't. I'm still learning as I go. Every single day I'm learning something new.
Well, and that kind of brings me to a natural question. Can't Stop is out, and it's doing well. As from what I can see, it's, you know, it's always a challenge for artists to get heard. It seems like it is being heard, and it, you know, I think it will continue to grow as A is for Arrows continues to grow, and as you continue to kind of change things up. But where do you want to go? I guess that's a really good question.
That is, I knew you were going to ask me that question. So it's funny because you said, you know, like you've heard this evolution and you've kind of been unleashed, and it's fun, and like everything before was kind of moody. And it's funny because I think I'm going back into, it's going to be a mix. Like there's, and that's another thing. Like I don't really know how to classify genres anymore. I just want to make music that speaks to me in the moment. And so I think that where I'm going is unidentifiable right now. I'll say that, but I do think it's got a lot more. It's going to be heavy in nature. I think there's going to be some like bops in there, but I think there's going to be a lot of personality that people don't know yet about me, a lot of like really personal things that are coming out, and I'm excited because I've been waiting to purge this stuff for a long time.
I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
You know, I think that artists maybe sometimes feel that they have to have a direction and they have to have something concrete. And I think for you to say it's kind of unidentifiable, that you know, you kind of want to make music in the moment and that speaks to you. I think that's kind of exciting. And when you say that it's hard to define genre, I know what you're saying. And I also think that's exciting, because I think what's happening for artists is once upon a time, you had to basically give yourself a label. You were pop. And what was pop? Well, it was this mixed bag that was over here, or you were rock, or you're alternative, or, you know, you're EDM, whatever. But now things are blending so much that if you want jazz elements, if you want, you know, something that's a little bit heavier first, and you want to go into some different areas, I think artists, because of, you know, the way that music is being delivered, have a little bit more room to play in. And I think that's exciting.
I think it's really exciting. It's an exciting time. So there's another silver lining of this whole thing, is that we're evolving to just be this, I would love to be genre neutral, you know, just, you know, when people ask me, what's your genre? I don't have an answer, because I'm like, I don't know. Today I feel like writing the poppiest, like hard pop song. And then tomorrow I want to write like something that's more hip hop rooted, but there I'm putting it in genres again, but I don't know what to call it. And I think that is exciting. And I think it's evolutionary. I think it's meant to be in the music industry.
I think if anything, it's pop, not pop as in genre, but popular, what people are listening to.
Yes.
But it's being created out of all these different little worlds that came before, that were kind of quite rigidly structured, maybe by the industry or radio, or how we listen to music, or how we digested it. Those walls have started to crumble, and it really does open you up for yourself. And, you know, being able to be out there online and playing in those different things. Have you heard artists, are there artists out there that you've heard that you're kind of like, I've never really thought about that style or that sound, and I really like what they're doing? Have there been people that you've come across now online that have excited you?
Yeah, tons. I don't know have you heard of Deb Never?
Yes.
Yes, love her. I'm so inspired by everything she's doing. I just think it's so cool. And Dominic Fike, just, yeah, I mean it. So many artists. I would need to look through my phone. Who's another one that I've been listening to? Well, K Flay I listen to a little bit, not as much as Deb Never, and Black Bear. Those are like my go-tos right now, I think.
I think that there's what's interesting about that, especially if you look at, I mean, Black Bear's on everything. So it's hard to miss Black Bear. I mean, Dominic Fike is someone who's probably one of maybe the most undervalued, but easily recognizable young artists that have come out doing things a little bit differently, doing it in his own way with some really interesting sounds. I think Dominic Fike still has yet to punch through the way that he really, I think, will. But I do think that when it comes to critics or whatnot, his name is always on their lips. But then you look at K Flay, and K Flay gets into there's some angst and joy that like K Flay pushes together that's just palpable, and I love her. And then just has not gotten to the place yet where people like the mainstream have really picked up on her. So I think that journey is still kind of going on, but I think that they're four artists, very, very different. That is really exciting if you're going to create out of those worlds.
Yeah, it's I feel like that's kind of my thing. Like I dive into 4 or 5 different artists like periodically in my life. Like every year it always changes, and I think I'm starting to realize that's represented in my music, and I'm always changing, I'm always evolving. I'm a human being, like just the way that we grow as humans, I'm growing as an artist. And yeah, it's exciting. It always keeps things fresh, right? And I don't think I attach myself to any one kind of sound. Maybe that's detrimental, maybe it's not. I think it's exciting. I like all 4 of those artists. What I like about them is that I believe them. I think that's the most important thing.
There's a lot of honesty in their music, a lot of honesty.
Authenticity, it's innovative, I love it. Yeah.
So how do you want to finish the year? Or how do you want to start next year? Maybe that's a better way of saying it.
I could answer both.
Sure.
Well, I want to finish my year positively with a positive outlook, of course. But maybe putting some more thought into how I'm going to go into next year. So I do want to release a couple more songs by the end of the year. And then starting next year, I think I want to, that's a good question. I think I want to release my music in a different way. More of a collection. I think that's my goal. More like, pockets of songs, like 3 here and 4 there, rather than just singles. I think that's a goal for me.
I think that's cool. And I think that again, silver linings that we're talking about, the internet, streaming, everything has changed the way that we look at that. Once upon a time, it was like a 12 to 14 song album, 10 maybe. And now people are releasing more collections. Like the EP has become the new LP. And I kind of like it. I kind of like how an artist can get in and tell a story in a few songs, but it's a real story. And it's a real piece for them. And I get that. I miss liner notes. I miss the old days of liner notes and things like that. But if you follow now on social media, as artists are releasing, it becomes almost like the new type of liner notes. I've seen a few artists do that where they release a song and then they'll have a caption that's with it, and that's what the song is about, or how it was produced, or how it was kind of created. So it's kind of neat.
It is really cool. I think that we're stepping into uncharted territory. I think as much as this has been kind of like a negative, anxious ridden year, I think there's going to be a lot of positives to take from it. It's a learning period.
I think there's going to be some noticeable changes, I think, from within that artists will really notice. And I also think that there will be some real benefit for audiences, because I think we now have hit that point of we can't be complacent anymore with the industry and with music. We've got to be forward thinking to make sure that it never gets to a point where it's in danger like this again.
Yeah, I think it was eye-opening for the music industry. I think it was eye-opening for, like, even going to shows. How many shows did you take for granted and didn't end up going to, or like, whatever it was. Now I think there's going to be a lot more, people are going to be a lot more grateful for the music industry in general. And I think that's the biggest takeaway of this year, at least for me.
Well, it's not a bad takeaway, because if we can get more people going to more live shows, that would make me happy, because live music to me is where it's at.
Life, I miss it. I miss it so much.
I miss going to shows. I miss hearing live music. I mean, you can watch live music, but I mean, there is something that is unexplainable. It's hard to explain to people. If you love live music, the energy that you get from it, you can feel it from the artist. And I know the artist can feel it from the audience when it's connecting. 100%.
It's another world. It's like as close to magic as you can get, I think.
We're going to get back there.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to be a part of that.
It's coming. I really hope so, because like live shows are my favorite. I love playing them, and I love going to see live performances. I hope we're going to get back.
Well, listen, this has been fantastic. I'm so glad we got a chance to kind of sit down and talk. I'm so excited by what you're doing.
Thank you.
It's, when I spend a lot of time listening to a lot of Canadian artists, and again, this is not just a Canadian thing, it is just right across the board. Yeah. But you're tapping into some new things. There's new sounds that are coming out there. There's an excitement, and I can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we did this, and I hope we get to do it again.
Anytime. Listen, right now, I'm all good for it. I'm not, the door is not beaten down and for me to be someplace. So
I'm in the same position. I'll be right here.
All right. We'll time it out. We'll make a date, and we'll circle back.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me. For anybody who is watching, this is Alessia from A is for Arrows, and the new song is out, Can't Stop, and it is streaming on all platforms. There's a lyric video. Go to YouTube and see it. Follow Alessia, listen to the music, love it, embrace it, live it.
Woo, thank you.
You're welcome, and we'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
When it's over, next you're pulling